Hashtag the galaxy voted to exile Earth. Humanity didn't wait for a second warning. Hashtag part 1. The blue marble that was Earth hung in the void of space, its surface still dotted with the lights of human civilization. From orbit, it looked peaceful, almost innocent. Ambassador Chun Wei stared at the planet through the viewport of the Galactic Council station, his hands clasped tightly behind his back. The irony was not lost on him that humanity's greatest achievement, reaching the stars and making contact with dozens of alien species, had become their downfall. The council chamber behind him buzzed with alien languages, translators working overtime to convert the cacophony into something resembling order. Chen had spent the last 3 days listening to accusations, pleas for understanding, and ultimately, the inevitable verdict. The galaxy had spoken, and they wanted humanity gone. Ambassador Chun. Came the familiar voice of Ziktar, the Velkan representative who had served as something close to a friend during Chen's tenure. The reptilian alien scales flickered between green and yellow, a sign of distress in his species. The final vote has been tallied. Chun turned slowly, his face a mask of diplomatic composure despite the storm raging within him. And 473 worlds voted for exile. 37 voted against. 12 abstained. Ziktar's voice carried genuine regret. "I'm sorry, my friend. My world was among those who opposed this decision." The numbers hit Chun like a physical blow, but he kept his expression neutral. Nearly 40 years of careful diplomacy, of proving humanity's worth to the galaxy, had crumbled in a matter of weeks. All because of what the Council termed humanity's aggressive expansion pattern and incompatible social structures. "How long do we have?" Chen asked quietly. "The evacuation order takes effect in 1 standard galactic year. All human colonies beyond your home system must be abandoned. All trade agreements are void. All diplomatic missions are recalled." Ziktar paused, his secondary eyes closing, and what Chun had learned was a gesture of sympathy. Earth itself is to be quarantined. No ship may approach within 10 astronomical units. Chen nodded slowly. 1 year to abandon everything humanity had built among the stars. 17 colonies, 3 major trade hubs, and countless smaller outposts. Millions of humans would need to be relocated to an already overcrowded Earth, assuming they even wanted to return. "There is something else," Ziktar continued, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "The hardliners wanted an immediate forcible eviction. Your species' reputation for adaptability concerned them. The 1-year grace period was a compromise." Adaptability, Chen repeated, tasting the word like poison. In galactic politics, it seemed humanity's greatest strength was seen as its most dangerous flaw. While other species had evolved for specific environments and social structures, humans thrived everywhere they went. They learned, they changed, they survived. To the established order of the galaxy that made them unpredictable and, therefore, threatening. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the chamber. Chen recognized the heavy tread of Admiral Sarah Mackenzie before she came into view. The head of human military operations in the galactic sector looked like she had aged a decade in the past week. Her usually pristine uniform was wrinkled, her gray hair escaping from its regulation bun. "Ambassador," she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "I've been monitoring the communications from Earth. The Colonial Assembly has been in emergency session for 6 hours." Chun turned fully to face her, and Mackenzie's expression was grim. "They're not taking this well. 3 governors have already declared independence from Earth's authority. The outer colonies are talking about armed resistance. And," she hesitated, "there's been an incident at New Geneva." "What kind of incident?" "The Altarian trade delegation tried to leave early, citing security concerns. Colonial security forces detained them at the spaceport." Mackenzie's jaw tightened. "It's being called a hostage situation." Chen closed his eyes briefly. The galaxy saw humanity as aggressive and unpredictable, and now they were proving it. Casualties? None yet. But it's only a matter of time. Mackenzie stepped closer, lowering her voice. Chun, there's something else. I've been reviewing our military assets, our colonial infrastructure, our resource networks. We're not as helpless as the Council thinks we are. Admiral, Chun said carefully, please tell me you're not suggesting what I think you're suggesting. Mackenzie's smile was sharp as a blade. I'm suggesting that maybe we shouldn't wait around for the galaxy to decide our fate for us. Humanity has spent 40 years playing by their rules, following their laws, respecting their boundaries. And where has it gotten us? Before Chun could respond, an urgent chime filled the chamber. The holographic display at the center of the room flickered to life, showing the face of Chancellor Rebecca Torres from Earth's capital. Her expression was grave, her usually perfect composure cracked. Ambassador Chun, Admiral Mackenzie, she began without preamble. I'm transmitting on emergency encryption. The situation here has deteriorated rapidly. 3 more colonies have declared independence in the last hour. The Martian Defense Force has mobilized, and we've detected fleet movements from several major galactic powers. What kind of movements? Mackenzie demanded, stepping into the transmission range. Enforcement fleets. The hegemony, the collective, even the normally neutral Ashanti Confederacy. They're positioning assets around our major colonies. Torres paused, her face pale. Intelligence suggests they're not just planning to oversee our evacuation. There are indications they intend to strip our colonies of valuable resources and technology before we leave. Chun felt the last of his diplomatic optimism crumble. They're going to rob us blind. It gets worse, Torres continued. We've intercepted communications suggesting that our quarantine isn't meant to be temporary. There's talk of eventually moving human populations to reservation worlds in the galactic fringe. Worlds with limited resources and no strategic value. The 3 humans stared at each other in silence for a moment. Finally, Mackenzie spoke. Chancellor, what are our defensive capabilities? Torres's expression hardened. Better than they think. The colonial fleet has been operating under galactic naval treaties for decades, which limited our ship designs and weapon systems. But we've been creative in our interpretations. Admiral Kane's latest report suggests we have roughly 600 combat-capable vessels of various classes. Against how many galactic enforcement ships? Chun asked, though he dreaded the answer. Current estimates put their combined fleets at just over 2,000 ships. But Torres held up a hand before despair could fully set in. They're spread across the galaxy, and many are older designs meant for policing, not warfare. Our ships are newer, more advanced, and our crews have actual combat experience from the Proxima border conflicts. Chun ran a hand through his graying hair. We're talking about war with the entire galaxy. No, Mackenzie said firmly. We're talking about survival. The galaxy has made it clear that they don't want us as equals. They want us as a cautionary tale. The question is, do we go quietly, or do we remind them why they were afraid of us in the first place? The communication link crackled, and Torres leaned forward. There's one more thing. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves at the Advanced Sciences Institute has been working on something. A project that was supposed to revolutionize interstellar travel. She says it's ready for testing. What kind of project? Chun asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. A new type of faster-than-light drive. Something that doesn't rely on the hyperspace lanes the galaxy uses for travel and communication. If it works, we could reach places they can't follow us to. Mackenzie's eyes lit up with interest. How new are we talking? Completely revolutionary. Instead of using existing hyperspace tunnels, her drive creates its own pocket dimension for travel. Independent, untrackable, and potentially faster than anything currently in use. Chun felt a chill run down his spine. If such technology existed, and the galaxy learned about it, humanity's exile would become the least of their problems. They would be hunted to extinction to prevent the technology from spreading. Has anyone else seen this research? Chun asked quietly. No, it's been classified at the highest levels. Only a handful of people even know it exists. Torres paused. But if we're going to use it, we need to decide quickly. Every day we wait is another day for the galaxy to tighten the noose. The three humans looked at each other, the weight of decision heavy in the air. In the background, the alien council continued their discussions, no doubt debating the finer points of humanity's exile. They had no idea that the species they were casting out was already planning something far beyond their expectations. "Admiral," Chun said finally, "how quickly could we evacuate our critical personnel and resources from the colonies? If we started immediately and used every available ship? 3 months for essential personnel and equipment. 6 months for everyone else." Mackenzie's expression was calculating. "But that's assuming we're working openly. If we need to do it quietly, without alerting the enforcement fleets, it would take longer." She nodded slowly. "And Dr. Reeves's drive? How long before it's operational?" Torres consulted something off-screen. "She says she needs 3 months for final testing and implementation on a fleet scale. But she's confident it will work." 3 months. Chun did the math in his head. If they started immediately, they could have their most valuable assets evacuated and their new technology operational before the galaxy realized what was happening. But it would mean abandoning any pretense of diplomacy, any hope of changing the Council's decision. "There's something else to consider," Mackenzie said, as if reading his thoughts. "Our colonies aren't just homes to millions of humans. They're economic powerhouses. The rare minerals from Kepler, 442b, the agricultural output of New Terra, the manufacturing facilities on Titan's Reach. If we simply abandon them, we're not just giving up territory. We're giving up the foundation of our civilization's economy. The galaxy is counting on that," Torres added grimly. "They want us broken, dependent, grateful for whatever scraps they throw us. A dozen reservation worlds with limited resources and constant monitoring." Chun walked back to the viewport, staring down at Earth. His homeworld looked so small from this distance, so vulnerable. But appearances could be deceiving. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and countless other disasters. They had clawed their way from caves to the stars through sheer, stubborn determination. Perhaps it was time to stop being diplomatic and start being human. "I need to speak with the Colonial Assembly," he said finally. "All of them. Emergency session." "Chun," Torres said carefully, "once we start down this path, there's no going back. The galaxy will never trust us again." Chun turned from the viewport, his expression hard as stone. "The galaxy already doesn't trust us. That's why we're in this situation. Maybe it's time we gave them a real reason to be afraid." 2 hours later, Chun stood before a holographic assembly of humanity's colonial leadership. Governors, admirals, scientists, and industry leaders from 17 worlds appeared as flickering blue figures in the Council Station's secure communication room. The sight was both impressive and sobering. These were the people who had built humanity's stellar civilization, and they were about to decide its future. Governor Maria Santos of New Terra was the first to speak. Her world was humanity's agricultural center, feeding most of the outer colonies with its engineered crops and livestock. "Ambassador, we've all seen the vote. My question is simple. Are we really going to let them do this to us?" "The legal framework is clear," replied Governor James Harrison from Kepler, 442b, though his voice carried no conviction. "The Galactic Charter gives the Council authority to quarantine species deemed a threat to galactic stability." "Legal," spat Admiral David Kane from the Colonial Fleet Headquarters on Titan's Reach. "They're stealing our homes and calling it law. My grandfather didn't fight in the Unification Wars, so we could roll over for alien bureaucrats." Chun raised a hand for silence. "Before we proceed, everyone needs to understand the consequences of what we're discussing. If we resist this exile, we'll be declaring ourselves enemies of the galactic order. Every major power will consider us a rogue species, as opposed to the reservation world they're planning for us." Governor Santos shot back. "I've seen the intelligence reports, Ambassador. They want to strip our colonies of everything valuable and leave us with rocks and radiation." Dr. Elizabeth Reeves, appearing via secure link from her laboratory on Earth, leaned forward. I've been listening to this debate, and I think you're all missing the point. We're not just talking about resistance. We're talking about revolution. Explain, Chun said. Reeves gestured, and technical diagrams appeared in the shared space. My research has produced something that changes everything. A faster-than-light drive that doesn't use hyperspace. We could literally disappear from the galaxy's map and reappear wherever we choose. The assembly fell silent as they absorbed the implications. Governor Harrison was the first to speak. You're talking about exodus. Complete separation from galactic civilization. Not separation. Admiral Kane corrected, his eyes bright with possibility. Liberation. We take our technology, our resources, our people, and we find somewhere the galaxy can't touch us. Build our own civilization, our own rules. And what about the humans who want to stay? Asked Governor Liu Wei from the research station at Wolf 359. What about those who've built lives here, made alien friends, found their place in galactic society? Chen had been dreading this question. They would have to choose. Come with us, or stay and accept whatever the galaxy decides their fate should be. The debate continued for hours, touching on logistics, ethics, resources, and the countless complications of such an undertaking. But gradually a consensus emerged. Humanity would not go quietly into exile. They would not accept reservation worlds or constant supervision. They would take their destiny into their own hands. Finally, Chancellor Torres called for a formal vote. All in favor of immediate preparation for exodus? One by one, the colonial leaders gave their assent. New Terra, Kepler, 442b, Titan's Reach, Wolf 359, the manufacturing hub at Proxima Centauri b, the mining operations in the Gliese system, even the research stations and small outposts. 17 worlds representing millions of humans, choosing the unknown over subjugation. Motion carries, Torres announced. Operation Prometheus is authorized. Chun felt a strange mix of relief and terror. They had just committed humanity to the greatest gamble in their history. What's our timeline? Admiral Kane pulled up fleet deployment charts. I can have our evacuation fleets moving within 48 hours. We'll start with non-essential personnel and equipment. Make it look like voluntary early departures. The critical stuff, technology, resources, key personnel, comes later, closer to the deadline. And the new drive? Chun asked Dr. Reeves. 3 months for full fleet implementation. But I can have prototype units ready in 6 weeks for advanced scouts. Reeves paused. Where exactly are we planning to go? That question hung in the air like a challenge. The galaxy was vast, but most of it was claimed by various powers or too hostile for human life. They needed somewhere remote, defensible, and rich enough in resources to support their civilization. Governor Santos spoke up. I've been reviewing astronomical data. There's a region beyond the outer rim, past the edge of current galactic exploration. Long-range surveys suggest multiple star systems with potentially habitable worlds. It's a 3-year journey with conventional drives. 3 months with mine, Dr. Reeves added, and completely outside current hyperspace lane networks. Even if they wanted to follow us, they'd need to build new infrastructure. It's perfect, Admiral Kane said with satisfaction. Remote enough to avoid interference, rich enough to support us, and far enough that by the time they find us, we'll be established enough to defend ourselves. Shin nodded slowly. The plan was audacious, dangerous, and probably insane. It was also thoroughly human. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we just declared independence from the galaxy. As the assembly began to break up, each leader rushing to begin preparations on their respective worlds, Chin remained in the communication chamber. The weight of what they had just decided settled on his shoulders like a lead blanket. They were about to uproot millions of people, abandon the worlds they had built, and venture into the unknown based on untested technology and astronomical data. But the alternative was worse. The galaxy had made their position clear. Humanity was acceptable as a junior partner, following orders and staying in their designated places. But as equals, as competitors, as the innovative, adaptive species they truly were, unacceptable. Chin thought about his own journey to this moment. He had spent his entire adult life believing in the galactic community, in the possibility of different species working together for mutual benefit. He had genuinely thought that humanity could find its place among the stars through diplomacy and cooperation. Perhaps they still could, just not in this galaxy. A soft chime indicated an incoming private message. Chun activated the display and found himself looking at the concerned face of his wife, Dr. Linda Chun, calling from their apartment on Earth. "Wei," she said softly, using his given name as she always did when they were alone. "I've been following the news feeds. Is it really as bad as they're saying?" Chin smiled sadly at the woman he had loved for 30 years. "It's worse, but we have a plan. When will you be coming home?" That simple question hit harder than all the political maneuvering and military planning. Home. For 40 years, he had thought of home as wherever humanity was building something new among the stars. But Linda still thought of Earth as home, still thought of their apartment overlooking the Pacific as the center of their universe. Soon, he said, knowing it was both true and a lie. He would return to Earth soon, but their home, their real home, was about to become a spaceship heading into the dark unknown. Wei, whatever they decide, whatever happens next, just remember that home isn't a place. It's the people we love, the dreams we share, the future we're building together. Linda's smile was warm and knowing. I've been married to a diplomat long enough to recognize a goodbye when I hear one. Chin's throat tightened. I love you. I love you too. Now go save our species, you impossible man. The connection ended, leaving Chun alone with the magnitude of what lay ahead. In 3 months, if everything went according to plan, humanity would vanish from the galaxy like a dream half remembered. Their colonies would stand empty, their trade routes abandoned, their diplomatic missions recalled. But somewhere beyond the edge of known space, humanity would begin again. Free from the restrictions and prejudices of galactic civilization, free to grow and explore and become whatever they were meant to be. Chun activated his personal communicator, sending encrypted messages to key human agents throughout the galaxy. Scientists who needed to secure their research, military officers who needed to prepare their commands, civilians who needed to make the hardest choice of their lives, stay in the galaxy they knew, or trust their species enough to follow them into the unknown. The first phase of Operation Prometheus had begun. In 91 days, humanity would either achieve the greatest exodus in galactic history or destroy themselves trying. Chin looked one more time at the blue marble of Earth through the viewport. Soon, it would be just another planet in a galaxy that no longer wanted its children. But those children were about to become something the galaxy had never seen before, a truly free human civilization, unbound by alien laws or expectations. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth. What they didn't realize was that they had just given humanity the greatest gift they could imagine, the chance to start over, to build something new, to show the universe what humans could accomplish when they stopped trying to fit in and started trying to excel. The exodus was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. Part 2 6 weeks had passed since the vote, and the galaxy was beginning to notice that something was wrong with their plan to exile humanity. What should have been a gradual, monitored withdrawal had become something else entirely. Captain Jessica Jess Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the CNS Defiance, watching as another transport filled with evacuees departed from New Terra. To any observer, it looked like a standard evacuation procedure. Families boarding ships with their belongings, industrial equipment being dismantled and loaded onto freighters, agricultural stock being relocated. What the observers couldn't see was that every single piece of equipment, every bit of scientific data, every person who wanted to leave was being systematically relocated according to a precise plan. "Captain," called her communications officer, Lieutenant Torres. "We're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Enforcement Fleet. Admiral Kextar wants to speak with you. Jess grimaced. Admiral Kextar was a hegemony officer known for his rigid adherence to protocol and his particular distrust of human creativity. Having him oversee the evacuation was like having a prison warden supervise a prisoner's parole. "Put him through," she said, straightening her uniform. The main screen flickered, showing the distinctly reptilian features of the hegemony admiral. His species, the Sauridi, were among the galaxy's most conservative and have been vocal supporters of humanity's exile. Kextar's golden eyes fixed on Jess with obvious suspicion. "Captain Rodriguez," he began without preamble, "my monitoring stations report that your evacuation is proceeding ahead of schedule. This is unusual for human operations." Jess kept her expression neutral. "We're simply being efficient, Admiral. The sooner we complete the evacuation, the sooner we can comply with the Council's decision." "Efficiency," Kextar repeated, tasting the word like something unpleasant. "My analysts indicate that you have evacuated nearly 60% of your colonial population in 6 weeks. At this rate, your colonies will be empty months before the deadline. Is there something wrong with being ahead of schedule, Admiral?" Kextar's secondary eyelids closed briefly, a sign of irritation in his species. "Captain, in my 40 years of enforcement service, I have overseen dozens of relocations, quarantines, and planetary evacuations. Never once has the affected species completed the process early. There is always resistance, always delays, always complications. Perhaps you've never dealt with humans before, Admiral." "Indeed, I have not, which is precisely why I am concerned." Kextar leaned forward, his scaled face filling the screen. "My intelligence officers report unusual activity throughout your colonies. Large-scale data transfers, equipment modifications, communication blackouts. What exactly are you planning?" Jess felt sweat beading on her forehead despite the bridge's cool temperature. The truth was that Operation Prometheus was entering its most dangerous phase. Dr. Reeves had successfully tested her prototype FTL drive just 3 days ago, and the results had exceeded all expectations. The test ship had traveled 50 light-years in a matter of hours, completely undetectable by conventional sensors. Now they were rushing to outfit their evacuation fleet with the new drives before the galaxy's enforcers realized what was happening. But that meant complex modifications to hundreds of ships, massive resource transfers, and the kind of coordinated activity that was bound to attract attention. "We're simply being thorough, Admiral. When humanity does something, we prefer to do it right." Kextar's expression suggested he found this explanation less than satisfactory. "Captain, I am authorizing inspection teams to board your evacuation vessels. Random checks to ensure compliance with relocation protocols." Jess's heart skipped a beat, but she kept her voice steady. "Of course, Admiral. We have nothing to hide." The transmission ended, leaving Jess staring at the blank screen. She immediately activated her command channel to Admiral Kane aboard the fleet flagship. "Admiral, we have a problem. Kextar wants to start boarding our ships for inspections." Kane's weathered face appeared on her personal display, his expression grim. "How long do we have?" His enforcement ships are already moving into position. "I'd guess 6 hours before they start." "Damn." Kane ran a hand through his gray hair. "The Philadelphia and the Shanghai just finished their drive installations this morning. If the hegemony finds those..." "Game over," Jess finished. "What are your orders, sir?" Kane was quiet for a moment, probably consulting with his staff. Finally, he spoke. "We accelerate the timeline. All ships with operational drives begin Phase 2 immediately. Everyone else continues the evacuation cover story." "Sir, that means leaving thousands of people behind." "Better thousands and millions, Captain. We always knew we might have to make this choice." Kane's expression was pained, but determined. "How many do you have aboard the Defiance?" Jess checked her ship's manifest. 1,200 evacuees, plus my crew of 200. All essential personnel from the agricultural research centers. "Good. You're in the first wave. Get your people to the rendezvous point and wait for further orders." "What about the people still on the surface?" The Canterbury and the New York are still loading. They'll have to take as many as they can and hope their drives come online before the hegemony figures out what's happening. Kane paused. Jess, this is it. After today, there's no going back. The transmission ended, leaving Jess alone with the weight of command. She turned to her bridge crew, all of whom had been listening to the conversation with growing tension. You heard the Admiral, she announced. General quarters. All departments, prepare for immediate departure. Helm, set course for grid reference 07 Alpha. As the Defiance began its departure procedures, Jess looked one last time at New Terra through the viewports. The planet's green continents and blue oceans looked peaceful from orbit, showing no sign of the frantic activity taking place on its surface. In the agricultural valleys where humanity had first learned to grow food in alien soil, the last evacuees were probably boarding the final transport ships right now. Some of them would make it to the Exodus fleet. Others would be trapped when the hegemony discovered what was really happening. It was a terrible choice, but it was the only choice they had. Captain, called her navigator, we're receiving the new jump coordinates. Destination is, well, ma'am, according to these numbers, we're heading for empty space about 200 light-years past the galactic rim. That's correct, Lieutenant. It's time to see if Dr. Reeves's miracle actually works. The Defiance shuddered slightly as its new FTL drive came online. Unlike the smooth transition of hyperspace jumps, this felt different, rawer, more powerful. Through the viewports, space itself seemed to fold and twist as the ship slipped into what Dr. Reeves had dubbed dimensional phase space. The sensation was indescribable. Not the gentle acceleration of conventional travel, or even the disorienting shift of hyperspace. This was like diving into an ocean of pure possibility, where the normal rules of physics became suggestions rather than laws. Then, suddenly, they were elsewhere. The view screen showed a star field unlike anything Jess had ever seen. The familiar constellations of galactic civilization were gone, replaced by an alien arrangement of lights against the cosmic dark. In the distance, a yellow star burned brightly, surrounded by the faint dots that might be planets. Navigation, report, Jess called, trying to keep the amazement out of her voice. Jump successful, Captain. We are approximately 215 light-years from our departure point. Travel time was... The navigator paused, checking his instruments twice. 4 hours and 37 minutes. A cheer went up from the bridge crew. 4.5 hours to travel a distance that would have taken conventional ships over 3 years. Dr. Reeves hadn't just created a new form of FTL travel. She had revolutionized it. Long-range sensors are picking up the arrival of other ships, the sensor operator reported. Looks like 12 vessels so far, with more arriving every few minutes. Over the next 6 hours, the Exodus fleet gradually assembled in the empty space between stars. Transport ships, cargo haulers, research vessels, and the precious few military ships that had managed to escape before the hegemony inspections began. Each arrival was greeted with a mixture of relief and grief. Relief that another ship had made it, grief for those who hadn't. Finally, Admiral Kane's flagship, the CNS Prometheus, materialized in their midst. The massive ship had served as the command center for humanity's colonial operations for 2 decades, and, seeing it here, in empty space beyond the galactic rim, drove home the magnitude of what they had accomplished. All ships, this is Admiral Kane, came the fleet-wide broadcast. Congratulations, people. We just pulled off the largest disappearing act in galactic history. Jess activated her communications console to join the fleet command channel. The holographic conference space filled with the faces of ship captains, colony administrators, and department heads from across the human diaspora. She recognized many of them. People she had served with, competed against, shared drinks with during the long years of building humanity's place among the stars. Status report, Kane called. What did we manage to save? The reports came in one by one. The Shanghai had evacuated most of the researchers from the Kepler 442b mining operations, along with critical equipment and data. The Philadelphia had the cultural archives from Wolf 359, plus a cargo hold full of rare elements. The Canterbury had made it out with barely minutes to spare, carrying refugees from 3 different agricultural worlds. But the losses were heartbreaking. The New York had been boarded by hegemony forces just as its drive was coming online, its crew and passengers now prisoners. 7 cargo ships loaded with industrial equipment had been impounded. Worst of all, nearly half the population of Proxima Centauri had been unable to reach evacuation ships before the hegemony locked down the system. Total count, Kane announced grimly, is just under 2 million people, out of 17 worlds with a combined population of 8 million. The silence that followed was heavy with grief and guilt. They had saved a fraction of humanity's colonial population, leaving millions behind to face whatever the galaxy decided their fate should be. "Sir," came a voice from one of the transport captains, "what about rescue missions? Could we go back for the others?" Kane shook his head. "Negative. By now, the hegemony knows what we've done. Every human world will be locked down tighter than a military base. Anyone who stayed behind is on their own." Dr. Elizabeth Reeves appeared on the conference channel, her image transmitting from her laboratory ship, the research vessel Discovery. "Admiral, we need to discuss our destination. The star system I identified is still 3 months away, even with our new drives. But I've been analyzing the sensor data from this region, and there might be alternatives." Kane gestured for her to continue. "Long-range scans are picking up several star systems within 2 weeks' travel. Some show signs of potentially habitable worlds. If we're going to establish a new civilization, we might not need to go as far as originally planned." Captain Sarah Chong of the transport ship New Beijing spoke up. "Dr. Reeves, what about the people we're carrying? These ships weren't designed for months of travel with full passenger loads. Our life support is already strained." "Which brings up another point," added Captain Torres from the cargo hull of Magellan. "Food supplies. We evacuated people, not the agricultural infrastructure to support them. Unless we find habitable worlds soon, we're going to be in trouble." Jess listened to the discussion with growing unease. In their rush to escape the galaxy's exile order, they had focused on getting out rather than planning for what came after. 2 million refugees, scattered across dozens of ships, heading into unknown space with limited supplies, and no clear destination. "Admiral," she said, "I recommend we establish a temporary base in this system while we scout our options. There are several asteroids in the outer system that could provide raw materials, and we need time to assess our situation properly." Kane nodded. "Agreed. All ships, new orders. We'll establish a staging area around the largest asteroid in this system's outer belt. Engineering teams will begin resource extraction, science teams will analyze potential destinations, and everyone else will start figuring out how to build a civilization from scratch." As the fleet began moving toward their temporary home, Jess found herself thinking about the people they had left behind. Were they being relocated to those reservation worlds Torres had mentioned? Were they being held as prisoners? Or had the galaxy decided that the remaining humans were no longer a threat without their leadership and infrastructure? "Captain," her communications officer called. "I'm picking up a signal. It's from Earth." Jess hurried to the communication station. "Put it through." The transmission was weak and heavily encrypted, but the face that appeared on the screen was unmistakably that of Chancellor Torres. However, she looked haggard, exhausted, like she had aged years in the past few weeks. "This is Chancellor Torres broadcasting on emergency frequencies to any human vessels that might be listening. If you're receiving this, then some of you made it out. Thank God." Torres paused, looking around nervously. "The situation here has deteriorated rapidly since the Exodus began. The hegemony is occupying our remaining colonies and has established a blockade around Earth itself. They're demanding the surrender of our FTL technology and the return of all evacuated personnel." Jess felt her stomach clench. Of course, the galaxy had figured out that humanity's rapid evacuation hadn't been possible with conventional technology. "We're holding out for now," Torres continued, "but they're threatening to use force if we don't comply. The good news is that we've managed to hide most of our research data and manufacturing capability. They know we have something new, but they don't know what it is or how it works. The transmission flickered, probably due to interference from jamming attempts. To whoever is listening, you represent humanity's future now. Don't come back for us. Don't risk what you've built. Go as far as you have to go, build whatever you need to build, and show the galaxy that humans don't surrender. Torres out. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Earth itself was under blockade. Their homeworld turned into a prison camp while the galaxy tried to extract the secrets of human innovation. Captain, her sensor officer called, I'm detecting energy signatures consistent with FTL arrivals. Multiple contacts bearing everywhere. Jess rushed to the sensor display, her heart sinking as she saw what was happening. Ships were materializing around their position, dozens of them, then hundreds. The sensor readouts identified them as belonging to multiple galactic powers, the hegemony, the collective, the Ashanti Confederacy, even some independent systems. Red alert, she called. All ships, prepare for possible combat action. Admiral Kane's voice echoed across the fleet channel. This is Admiral Kane to all ships. It appears the galaxy has found us. All vessels, implement dispersal pattern Delta and prepare to jump on my command. But as Jess watched the tactical display, she realized the truth. They weren't surrounded by an attack fleet. The ships arrayed around them were exploratory vessels, science ships, even civilian transports. The galaxy hadn't sent an army to destroy them. They had sent everyone they could to steal humanity's new technology. Admiral, she called on the command channel, I don't think they're here to fight us. Look at their ship configurations. Kane was quiet for a moment, probably studying his own sensor readings. You're right. That's not a battle fleet. It's a research expedition. A new voice cut across all frequencies, speaking in the formal tones of Galactic Standard. This is Admiral Vextar of the Galactic Enforcement Division. Human vessels, you're in violation of Exile protocols and are illegally operating prohibited technology. You will surrender immediately and submit to boarding for inspection. Jess activated her own transmitter. Admiral Vextar, this is Captain Rodriguez of the Colonial Naval Service. We are no longer subject to galactic authority, as your own council voted to exile us. We're simply leaving as ordered. Negative, Captain. The exile order did not include authorization to develop and deploy advanced FTL technology. Your drive systems represent a potential threat to galactic security and must be surrendered. Kane's voice joined the conversation, cold as space itself. Admiral, let me explain the situation. You voted to throw us out of the galaxy because you were afraid of human adaptability and innovation. Now you want us to hand over the very innovations that allowed us to comply with your exile order. I'm afraid I see a contradiction in your logic. Admiral Kane, Vextar replied, you have 60 seconds to surrender your vessels, or we will be forced to take them by force. Jess looked at her tactical display. Despite their numbers, the galactic ships were spread out, probably to prevent the humans from jumping away. But they were also vulnerable, having arrived piecemeal without proper coordination. More importantly, they clearly didn't understand the capabilities of humanity's new drive system. All ships, Kane announced, activate Phase 3 protocols. Time to show the galaxy what they're really dealing with. What happened next would later be studied in military academies across the galaxy as a textbook example of how technological superiority could overcome numerical disadvantage. The human ships didn't try to fight their way out or negotiate a surrender. Instead, they simply vanished. But they didn't go far. Dr. Reeves's dimensional drive allowed for pinpoint accuracy over short distances, something the galactic forces had no way of anticipating. The CNS Prometheus materialized directly above the hegemony flagship, close enough that their shields interfered with each other. The Shanghai appeared within the formation of collective science vessels, while the Philadelphia jumped to a position behind the Ashanti ships. This is Admiral Kane, came the broadcast on all frequencies. I want to make something perfectly clear. We didn't come out here to fight you. We came here to be left alone. But if you insist on pursuing us, you should know that we're no longer the same species you voted to exile. To demonstrate his point, Kane ordered a series of precision jumps that put human ships in impossible positions relative to the galactic fleet. Ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts, always staying just out of range of any possible attack, while making it clear that they could strike at will. Our new technology doesn't just make us mobile, Kane continued. It makes us unpredictable. You can't track us, you can't follow us, and you certainly can't cage us. We're leaving galactic space whether you like it or not. Admiral Vextar's response was predictably aggressive. All ships, open fire on the human vessels. Disable their drives for capture. But the galactic fleet quickly discovered the futility of trying to shoot ships that could disappear and reappear at will. Energy beams fired at empty space as human vessels danced between dimensions, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted effectively. Jess watched the tactical display with a mixture of awe and terror as her species demonstrated their technological superiority. But she also recognized the danger of the situation. This wasn't just about escaping exile anymore. They were showing the galaxy that humanity had become something unprecedented, something that challenged the very foundations of the established order. Admiral Kane, she called on the command channel. Recommend we end this demonstration and withdraw. We've made our point. Agreed, Kane replied. All ships, final jump sequence. Destination, the outer system staging area. The human fleet vanished from the battlefield, leaving the galactic forces alone with their confusion and growing fear. They had come expecting to capture a fleeing refugee fleet. Instead, they had encountered something that made their most advanced technology look primitive by comparison. 3 hours later, safely established around their chosen asteroid, the human fleet took stock of their situation. They had successfully demonstrated their independence from galactic authority, but they had also revealed the extent of their technological advancement. There would be consequences for that demonstration, and they would not be pleasant. Admiral, Dr. Reeve called from her laboratory ship, I've been monitoring galactic communication channels. The word is spreading fast. Half the galaxy thinks we've stolen some ancient alien technology. The other half thinks we've made contact with extragalactic forces. Kane's expression was grim. And the truth? That we've developed something they can't understand or control, which makes us more than exiles, Admiral. It makes us the boogeyman that will keep galactic civilization awake at night. Jess stared out at the alien stars surrounding their temporary refuge. They had escaped the galaxy's exile, but in doing so, they had created a new problem. They were no longer just unwanted refugees looking for a new home. They had become the unknown threat that every established power would seek to neutralize. The Exodus had succeeded, but the real challenge was just beginning. Somewhere in this vast emptiness beyond the galactic rim, humanity would have to build not just a new civilization, but one strong enough to survive whatever the galaxy might send after them. And based on what they had just demonstrated, Jess was certain that something would be coming. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth because they feared human adaptability. Now they had seen what that adaptability could produce when humanity was truly free to innovate. The vote had been to exile humanity from the galaxy. But what they had really done was declare war on the species that had just proven they didn't need the galaxy anymore. Part 3 2 years had passed since the Exodus, and the asteroid belt that had served as humanity's temporary refuge had been transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. Where once only cold rock had drifted in the void, now a thriving industrial complex sprawled across dozens of asteroids, connected by pressurized tunnels and energy conduits that pulsed with life. Commander Elena Vasquez stood in the observation dome of Asteroid 7, watching the controlled chaos of construction bots and human workers as they assembled the latest addition to their growing fleet. The ship taking shape in the scaffolding was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Sleek where galactic vessels were bulky, elegant where they were utilitarian, and built around technologies that seemed to bend the laws of physics. "Ma'am," called Technician Park from his workstation, "we're receiving the daily intelligence briefing from the Prometheus." Elena nodded, turning away from the mesmerizing dance of construction. The intelligence reports had become increasingly disturbing over the past months. The galaxy hadn't forgotten about humanity's disappearance. If anything, their departure had created a paranoia that was reshaping interstellar politics. The holographic display materialized in the center of the dome, showing Admiral Kane's weathered face. Behind him, Elena could see the busy command center of humanity's flagship, now serving as the mobile capital of their growing civilization. "Elena," Kane began, "I hope you're sitting down for this one. Our listening posts have intercepted communications from the Galactic Council session that concluded yesterday. They've officially designated humanity as a Class 5 existential threat." Elena felt her stomach clench. Class 5 was the highest threat designation in galactic law, reserved for phenomena like rogue, artificial intelligences or species that had developed reality-warping technology. It was a designation that authorized any and all measures for containment or elimination. "There's more," Kane continued grimly. "They formed something called the Galactic Security Coalition, 12 major powers pooling their resources specifically to deal with the human problem. Their stated goal is to locate our new territory and eliminate what they're calling our destabilizing technologies." The display shifted to show a star chart marked with fleet movements. Elena's trained eye immediately grasped the magnitude of what she was seeing. Hundreds of ships from across the galaxy were being repositioned, all heading toward the outer rim territories where humanity's trail had last been detected. "How many ships are we talking about, Admiral?" Current estimates put the Coalition fleet at just over 3,000 vessels. Everything from heavy cruisers to specialized science ships designed to track our dimensional drives. Kane paused, his expression growing even more serious. "Elena, they're not coming to capture us. The intercepted communications make it clear that this is an extermination mission." Elena stared at the display, her mind racing through calculations. 3,000 ships represented the largest military force assembled in galactic history. The fact that it was being deployed against a refugee population of 2 million humans said everything about how thoroughly they had terrified the established powers. "Admiral, what's our current defensive capability?" "Better than they expect, but not good enough for a direct confrontation." Kane gestured, and the display switched to show humanity's current fleet composition. "We've got 450 vessels now, thanks to our manufacturing efforts. But most of them are still converted civilian ships or light military craft. Against a dedicated battle fleet of that size, we'd be slaughtered," Elena finished. "What are our options?" Kane's expression shifted to something that might have been a smile under different circumstances. "That depends on how ambitious we're feeling. Dr. Reeves has been working on something she calls the Genesis Project. She thinks it might change the entire dynamic of our situation." The display switched again, this time showing what appeared to be technical schematics of massive, cylindrical structures. Elena studied them for a moment, trying to understand the scale indicated by the measurements. "Admiral, these dimensions can't be right. According to this, those structures are each over 50 kilometers long." "The dimensions are correct. Elena, what you're looking at are mobile space habitats. Complete worlds in miniature, capable of supporting millions of people indefinitely. More than that, they're equipped with manufacturing facilities, research labs, and defensive systems that would make a battle station jealous." Elena felt her breath catch. "Admiral, are you telling me we're building space cities?" "We're building an entire civilization that doesn't need planets," Kane confirmed. "Self-sufficient, mobile, and completely independent of any fixed location. The galaxy wants to hunt us down? Let them try to find a civilization that can pack up and move between galaxies if necessary." The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. They weren't just talking about hiding from the Galactic Coalition. They were talking about transcending the very concept of territorial civilization. If humanity could build mobile habitats on this scale, they could survive anywhere in the universe. How long before the first habitat is operational? Dr. Reeves estimates 6 months for basic life support and population transfer. Full functionality within a year. Kane leaned forward, his expression intense. Elena, if this works, we won't just be refugees anymore. We'll be something the galaxy has never encountered, a truly nomadic space-faring civilization. And if the Coalition finds us before the habitats are ready, Kane's smile was sharp as a blade. Then, we give them a demonstration of what human ingenuity looks like when we stop playing by anyone else's rules. The transmission ended, leaving Elena alone with the magnitude of what she had just learned. She turned back to the observation window, but now the construction activity below looked different. Those weren't just ships being built. They were the components of a completely new form of civilization. Her contemplation was interrupted by an urgent chime from the communication system. Commander Vasquez, this is the sensor station. We got incoming vessels on an intercept course. Configuration suggests they're not ours. Elena's blood chilled as she rushed to the command console. How many ships? Just 3, ma'am. But they're not showing up on our dimensional sensors, which means they're using conventional FTL. Range is still extreme, but they'll be here in about 6 hours. Elena activated the emergency alert system, sending the alarm throughout the asteroid complex. 3 ships didn't sound like much, but if they had found humanity's location, it meant the galaxy's search efforts were more successful than anyone had hoped. Alert Admiral Kane immediately, and give me a direct line to Dr. Reeves. 15 minutes later, Elena found herself in the middle of a crisis conference involving the entire human leadership. The holographic command center of the Prometheus was packed with department heads, ship captains, and civilian administrators, all trying to process the implications of their discovery. The ships are definitely galactic, reported Commander Singh from the Fleet's Intelligence Division. Sensor profiles match collective reconnaissance vessels. Long-range exploration ships with enhanced detection equipment. Dr. Reeves, appearing via link from her mobile laboratory, looked exhausted but determined. If they found us here, they'll find our destination systems too. Our dimensional drives leave quantum signatures that sophisticated sensors can track, given enough time and processing power. How sophisticated are we talking about? Kane asked grimly. Sophisticated enough that they've apparently reverse-engineered our trail from the original exodus point. They know where we went, they know how we got there, and they probably have a pretty good idea of what we're capable of. Elena felt the walls of their refuge closing in around them. Dr. Reeves, what about the habitats? Can they be moved before discovery? The first habitat is maybe 30% complete. Moving it now would mean abandoning months of work. Reeves paused, consulting data on her screens. But there might be another option. The display in the conference space shifted to show a schematic of what looked like a massive ring structure surrounding a star. Elena had seen similar concepts in theoretical physics papers, but the scale of this one was breathtaking. What exactly am I looking at? Kane asked. A Dyson ring, Reeves replied. Not a complete sphere, but a ring of habitable structures orbiting a star and capturing its energy output. With our manufacturing capabilities and dimensional drive technology, we could build one in under 5 years. The conference space fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. A Dyson ring represented the ultimate expression of a space-based civilization, a structure that could house billions of people and command the entire energy output of a star. Dr. Reeves, Elena said carefully, you're talking about a construction project that would require more resources than exist in most star systems, which is why we build it in an uninhabited system and use dimensional drives to gather resources from across multiple galaxies. Reeves replied matter-of-factly. Elena, we're already operating beyond the galaxy's technological understanding. Why limit ourselves to their conception of what's possible? Admiral Kane leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. Doctor, are you seriously suggesting that humanity should become a galaxy-spanning engineering civilization? I'm suggesting that we already have. The question is whether we want to keep hiding from the galaxy or show them what we've really become. Before anyone could respond, the conference was interrupted by an urgent priority alert. Commander Singh's face appeared on an auxiliary display, his expression tense. Admiral, the 3 incoming ships just dropped out of FDL at the edge of our sensor range. They're not approaching, they're deploying some kind of probe network. Kane immediately activated the fleet command channel. All ships, yellow alert. Prepare for possible contact with galactic forces. Elena watched the tactical display as dozens of small objects separated from the 3 ships and began spreading throughout the asteroid belt. Whatever they were clearly designed to gather intelligence about human capabilities and technology. Admiral, she said, recommend we capture one of those probes. If we can analyze their surveillance technology, we might learn how they found us. Agreed. Elena, take a stealth team and bring me back one of those things. But be careful. If this is a scouting mission, there's probably a much larger force not far behind. 2 hours later, Elena found herself suited up and drifting through space toward one of the alien probes. Her team had used a small stealth ship to get close without detection, and now they were attempting to capture their target using magnetic grapples and signal jammers. The probe was larger than expected, roughly the size of a small shuttle, and bristling with sensor equipment that she didn't recognize. More concerning was the fact that it seemed to be actively scanning everything in the area, including the stealth ship they had arrived in. Commander, came the voice of Technician Park through a suit radio. This thing is using some kind of quantum entanglement communication system. It's transmitting data faster than light, without using dimensional technology. Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the vacuum around her. Are you saying it's sending real-time intelligence back to whoever launched it? Not just intelligence, ma'am. I'm reading massive data streams. Detailed scans of our ships, our habitats, our technology. Everything. Elena grabbed the probe with her suit's magnetic clamps and activated the signal jammer, but it was probably too late. For the past 2 hours, this device had been studying humanity's refugee civilization and transmitting its findings back to the Galactic Coalition. Pack it up, she ordered her team. We're taking this thing back for analysis, but the damage is already done. 30 minutes later, Elena was back in the asteroid complex's laboratory, watching as human technicians carefully disassembled the captured probe. What they found inside was both impressive and terrifying. Commander, reported Dr. Martinez, the head of their technology analysis division, this probe contains computing power equivalent to our best research stations. More than that, it's got manufacturing templates for at least 12 different types of weapons specifically designed to counter dimensional drive technology. Elena stared at the probe's components spread across the laboratory table. They came prepared. This wasn't a random search mission. No, ma'am. This was a targeted intelligence operation based on detailed knowledge of our capabilities. Dr. Martinez activated a holographic display showing the probe's data cores. They know about our drives, our manufacturing capabilities, our population levels. They even have tactical assessments of our likely responses to various threat scenarios. Elena activated her communicator, linking directly to Admiral Kane. Admiral, you need to see this. The galaxy isn't just hunting us. They're preparing for war based on intelligence about our specific capabilities. Kane's response was immediate. Elena, get that probe data to Dr. Reeves immediately. If they know our capabilities, we need to develop capabilities they don't know about. But as Elena coordinated the data transfer, alarms began sounding throughout the complex. She rushed to the observation dome, where her worst fears were confirmed by what she saw on the sensor displays. Ships were materializing throughout the asteroid belt. Not 3 reconnaissance vessels this time, but hundreds of warships emerging from hyperspace in perfect formation around humanity's refuge. The trap was sprung, and there was nowhere to run. All hands battle stations, came Admiral Kane's voice over the general communication system. This is not a drill. We are under attack by coalition forces. All civilian personnel to emergency shelters. All military units, prepare for combat. Elena watched through the viewport as energy beams began lighting up the space between asteroids. The Galactic Coalition had found them, surrounded them, and was now moving to eliminate what they saw as an existential threat to galactic civilization. But as the battle began, something unexpected happened. Instead of the overwhelming assault everyone had feared, the attacking ships seemed confused, uncertain. Their weapons' fire was inaccurate, their formations disorganized. It took Elena a moment to realize what was happening. "They can't track our ships properly," she said to herself, watching as human vessels seemed to dance between the Coalition forces like ghosts. Their sensors are calibrated for conventional technology. The realization hit her like a revelation. The galaxy had come prepared to fight the humans they thought they knew, a refugee population with stolen or borrowed technology. They weren't prepared for what humanity had actually become. Admiral Kane's voice echoed through the complex. "All ships, implement Dispersal Protocol 7. Show them what happens when you corner a species that's already evolved past your understanding." What followed would later be analyzed by military historians as the moment when humanity announced its presence as a true stellar civilization. The Coalition forces found themselves fighting an enemy that could appear and disappear at will, strike from impossible angles, and coordinate attacks across vast distances instantaneously. But more than that, they found themselves fighting an enemy that had spent 2 years preparing for exactly this scenario. Human ships didn't just evade the Coalition attacks. They systematically dismantled them, capturing ships and technology while demonstrating a level of tactical sophistication that left the attackers reeling. Elena watched from the observatory as the CNS Prometheus materialized directly in the center of the Coalition formation, surrounded by enemy ships, but completely unharmed. The flagship's powerful transmitters activated, broadcasting a message that would be heard across the galaxy. "This is Admiral Kane of the human colonial fleet." His voice echoed across all frequencies. "You came here to eliminate a threat to galactic stability. Instead, you've discovered that the threat is far greater than you imagined. We are no longer the species you voted to exile. We have become something new, something that doesn't need your permission to exist." As if to emphasize the point, the human fleet began a demonstration that defied everything the Coalition forces thought they knew about space warfare. Ships materialized inside the enemy formation, not to attack, but to disable and capture. Within hours, over 100 Coalition vessels had been taken intact, their crews transferred to human ships for their own safety. "You have a choice," Kane continued. "Withdraw from this system and report to your governments that humanity is no longer their concern, or continue this engagement and discover just how far we've advanced beyond your comprehension." The Coalition fleet's response was to intensify their attack, calling in reinforcements and attempting to coordinate a final overwhelming assault. It was exactly the wrong decision. What happened next redefined the very concept of space warfare. Human ships didn't just fight the Coalition. They systematically demonstrated technologies and tactics that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Ships that could phase in and out of normal space at will. Weapons that could target enemy vessels across dimensional barriers. Most shocking of all, manufacturing ships that could construct new vessels in real time during the battle itself. Elena watched in awe as humanity's refugee fleet transformed into something that resembled a force of nature more than a conventional military. The Coalition had come expecting to destroy a hidden colony. Instead, they had stumbled into contact with a civilization that had transcended their understanding of what was possible. By the end of the 8-hour engagement, over half the Coalition fleet had been captured or disabled. The remainder were in full retreat, transmitting desperate warnings about humanity's capabilities back to their respective governments. But the most significant moment came when Admiral Kane opened a final communication to the fleeing ships. "Tell the galaxy that humanity thanks them for their exile order. By forcing us to leave, you've given us the freedom to become what we were always meant to be. We are no longer bound by your laws. your limitations, or your fears. We have found our destiny among the stars, and we will not be returning to ask for permission to exist. As the last of the Coalition ships disappeared into hyperspace, Elena realized that everything had changed. They were no longer refugees hiding from the galaxy. They had become something unprecedented, a truly free human civilization, unbound by any external authority and capable of defending that freedom against any threat. Dr. Reeves's voice came over the communication system. All department heads report to the Genesis Project immediately. I think it's time we stop thinking small. Elena made her way to the massive construction bay where the first space habitat was taking shape. But when she arrived, she found that the project had evolved far beyond anything she had imagined. The cylindrical structure she had seen in the schematics was now just one component of a vast complex that seemed to extend in all directions. Dr. Reeves, she called as she spotted the scientist coordinating with a team of engineers. What exactly are we looking at here? Reeves turned with a smile that was equal parts exhaustion and exhilaration. Elena, what you're looking at is humanity's future. We're not just building space habitats anymore. We're building the foundation for a civilization that can expand across multiple galaxies. The scope of what she was seeing finally hit Elena. This wasn't just about survival or independence. Humanity had discovered its true potential among the stars, and they were preparing to claim a destiny that made their former galactic citizenship look provincial by comparison. The galaxy wanted to exile us because we were becoming too adaptable, too innovative, too independent, Reeves continued. What they didn't realize is that by forcing us to leave, they were freeing us to become something far more remarkable than they ever imagined. Elena stared at the construction taking place around her, trying to comprehend the magnitude of what humanity was building. They had gone from being exiled refugees to becoming the most technologically advanced civilization in known space, all in the span of 2 years. Dr. Reeves, she said quietly, what happens when the galaxy realizes what we've become? Reeves's expression grew thoughtful. That's the wrong question, Elena. The right question is, what happens when we decide what we want the galaxy to become? As Elena contemplated that statement, she realized that humanity's exile had ended. What was beginning now was something far more significant. The emergence of a human civilization that had transcended all the limitations that had previously defined spacefaring species. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth because they feared human potential. Now they would discover that their fear had been entirely justified, but their solution had been exactly wrong. Instead of containing humanity, they had freed them to become something that would reshape the universe itself. Part 4 5 years had passed since the battle that announced humanity's transformation, and the news reaching Earth through carefully hidden communication networks was almost impossible to believe. The reports spoke of structures the size of planets, ships that could cross galactic distances in days, and human settlements appearing in star systems that shouldn't have been reachable by any known technology. Dr. Sarah Kim stood in the underground laboratory complex beneath the ruins of Geneva, studying the latest intelligence reports while trying to maintain some semblance of scientific objectivity. Around her, the last remnants of Earth's scientific community worked in secret, developing technologies that had to remain hidden from their hegemony occupiers. Dr. Kim called her assistant, Marcus Chun, from his workstation. We're receiving another transmission from the outer territories. The encryption is unusual. Sarah hurried to the communication array, her heart racing with anticipation and fear. Any contact with the Exodus fleet was dangerous. The hegemony had made it clear that attempting to communicate with the rogue human elements was punishable by immediate execution. But the information being transmitted was too valuable to ignore. The holographic display materialized, showing a face that Sarah recognized from the old colonial administration files. Dr. Elizabeth Reeves, the scientist whose dimensional drive technology had made humanity's exodus possible. But the woman on the screen looked different somehow, more confident, more purposeful, as if she had found something that had fundamentally changed her understanding of the universe. Dr. Kim, Reeves began, her voice carrying despite the static interference. I hope this transmission finds Earth's scientific community intact. I'm sending this message to update you on our progress and to prepare you for what's coming. The display shifted to show technical diagrams that made Sarah's breath catch. Massive ring structures orbiting stars, space habitats larger than Earth's moon, and ship designs that seemed to incorporate physics principles she didn't recognize. We've completed construction of our first Dyson ring around a K-type star approximately 300 light-years from your location, Reeves continued. The structure currently houses 17 million humans and has manufacturing capabilities that exceed the combined industrial output of the entire galaxy. Sarah stared at the numbers, trying to process their implications. 17 million humans. That was more than 8 times the population that had escaped during the Exodus. How is such growth possible in only 5 years? I know what you're thinking, Reeves said, as if reading her mind across the vast distance. The population growth seems impossible, but we've made discoveries that change everything. Dr. Kim, we've learned to manipulate time itself. The technical diagrams shifted to show what appeared to be temporal manipulation devices. Sarah's scientific training rebelled against what she was seeing. The energy requirements alone should have been impossible to achieve. Our dimensional drive technology had unexpected applications, Reeves explained. By creating pocket universes with accelerated time flows, we can compress years of construction and population growth into months of real time. We've essentially given ourselves the time we need to build a civilization that can compete with the galaxy on equal terms. Sarah felt her worldview shifting as she absorbed the implications. If humanity could manipulate time, they weren't just technologically superior. They were operating according to completely different physical laws than the rest of the galaxy. But that's not the most important part of this message, Reeves continued, her expression growing serious. Dr. Kim, we've discovered that we're not alone out here. There are other civilizations beyond the galactic rim, species that left the galaxy for reasons similar to our own. We've made contact with 3 of them, and the alliance we're building is significant. The display switched to show star charts marking multiple civilizations in the apparently empty space beyond the galaxy. Each represented a species that had, at some point in galactic history, been forced to leave or chosen to abandon the established order. The architects were exiled 6,000 years ago for developing planetary construction technology that the galaxy considered too dangerous. The gardeners left 3,000 years ago when the Council tried to regulate their biological manipulation abilities. The navigators departed 800 years ago after being accused of violating the temporal accords. Reeves paused. Dr. Kim, we're not the first species to discover that exile from the galaxy can be a gift rather than a punishment. Sarah leaned closer to the display, studying the technical specifications being transmitted. Each of these civilizations had developed capabilities that seemed impossible by current galactic standards. Planetary construction, biological manipulation, temporal technology, combined with humanity's dimensional drives and manufacturing capabilities, they represented a technological alliance that could reshape the universe. The 4 civilizations have agreed to form what we're calling the Free Alliance, Reeves continued. Our goal isn't conquest or revenge, it's demonstration. We're going to show the galaxy what's possible when civilizations are free to develop without artificial limitations. The transmission was interrupted by alarms echoing through the hidden laboratory. Sarah quickly shut down the communication equipment as footsteps thundered overhead. A hegemony patrol was conducting another sweep of the ruins, searching for any sign of continued human resistance. Marcus grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling her toward the emergency exit tunnels. Dr. Kim, we need to move. If they find this equipment. Sarah took one last look at the now dark display, her mind racing with the implications of what she had just learned. Somewhere beyond the galactic rim, humanity had become part of an alliance of exiled civilizations, each contributing technologies that had been considered too dangerous for galactic society. But As she and Marcus fled through the underground tunnels, one thought dominated her mind. If the Free Alliance was as powerful as Reeves suggested, why hadn't they returned to liberate Earth? The answer came 3 months later, in a way that no one could have anticipated. Sarah was in her secondary laboratory, hidden in the ruins of the old CERN facility, when every communication device on Earth suddenly activated simultaneously. Not just human devices, every piece of electronic equipment capable of receiving signals, including hegemony military communication arrays and civilian broadcasting networks. The image that appeared was not Dr. Reeves or Admiral Kane or any other human. Instead, it was something that challenged every assumption about intelligence and civilization that the galaxy had ever held. The being on the screen was roughly humanoid, but clearly artificial, a crystalline structure that seemed to pulse with internal light. When it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that suggested vast intelligence and computational power. Citizens of the galaxy, it began, its words automatically translated into every known language simultaneously. We are the architects. 6 millennia ago, your ancestors forced our departure from galactic civilization because our ability to construct worlds and modify star systems was deemed destabilizing to the natural order. The image shifted to show footage of massive construction projects, planets being assembled from asteroid belts, stars being contained and redirected, entire solar systems being redesigned for optimal habitability. The scale of engineering was beyond anything the current galaxy could comprehend. We accepted exile because we believed that different approaches to civilization could not coexist peacefully. We were wrong. The arrival of humanity in our territory has shown us that diversity of thought and capability makes all civilization stronger. Sarah watched in awe as the transmission continued, showing the technological marvels that the exiled civilizations had created. Space habitats that dwarfed planets, ships that could traverse galactic distances in hours, manufacturing capabilities that could construct entire star systems from raw energy. The Free Alliance extends an invitation to every world, every species, every individual who believes that civilization should not be limited by the fears and prejudices of established authority. The architect continued. We offer technology, knowledge, and freedom to develop according to your species' natural potential. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. This wasn't just about humanity anymore. The Free Alliance was offering every species in the galaxy the chance to transcend the limitations that had been placed on their development. But we also offer a warning. The architect's voice grew stern. The current galactic order is maintained through the suppression of innovation and the exile of those who threaten the status quo. That system has become unsustainable. Change will come, whether through peaceful transition or through the collapse of institutions that can no longer adapt to reality. The transmission showed images from across the galaxy, uprising on.